Welcome to Moya Parent School and Kindergarten, situated in Kampala City with modern, well-equipped facilities plus extensive playing fields and amenities. Moya Parent School believes that a better future lies where children know how to find and create balances in themselves and the world around them. This explains our fusion of academic subjects and co-curricular activities. There are many opportunities presented to them to flourish both in and outside the classroom.
I want to become a president when I grow up.
I want to be a pilot.
I will be the best fashion designer.
Moya Parent School, the sky is our limit.
Dear P5 learners, I welcome you to our second lesson in science. In the previous lesson, you learned about the digestive system. Before we go into the next lesson, I would like us to go through that lesson, the first lesson. I am Teacher Nyai Robert, taking you through the second lesson. So what did we go through in the first lesson? The teacher left you with an activity which was having this diagram and the questions below. What does question 1 say? What is digestion? What is digestion? So what was your response? Good. Digestion is the process by which food is broken down into simple, soluble particles that can be absorbed into the body. What are we saying? Digestion is the process by which food is broken down into simple, soluble particles that can be absorbed into the body. Our second question was, draw and name the missing parts of the digestive system. You were meant to draw this diagram neatly using a well-sharpened pencil. I hope you did that. Now, what were the missing parts? We had parts V, P, Q, T, M, and O. So what is represented by letter V? V was representing the epiglottis, not the spelling. Did you get the spelling right? Wonderful. Then part P is the pancreas. Can we say it? Pancreas. Right. Part T is the rectum. Rectum. And we have part Q representing the stomach. O, the colon. And lastly, part M as the anus. Right spelling? Good. Our last question in this activity was, state the function of parts marked Q, T, and N. And according to our diagrams, part Q was the stomach. Part Q was the stomach. So in other words, what is the importance of the stomach? And we are saying the stomach stores food for a short time. We have other functions or other ways in which the stomach is useful as a part of our digestive system, but we shall get the details in the coming lesson. Then let's look at part T, which was representing the rectum. So what's the role of the rectum? The rectum stores undigested food, which we normally pass out in form of feces. In summary, the rectum stores undigested food before being passed out as feces. And last but not least, part marked N. So according to our diagram, what was part N? All right, part N was the gallbladder. The gallbladder is attached to which body organ? The liver. All right, the role of the gallbladder in this case is to store what we call bile juice. Remember, bile juice is produced by the liver but stored by the gallbladder. We shall know how bile juice is important, especially during the process of digestion. So, if you passed all this work, give yourself flowers pollinated by our bee. Okay? Fine. So today we are not going to look at that. We want to look at something else, and that is digestion. Types of digestion. We are continuing with this topic, and for today we want to look at other areas in this topic. So let's look at what we call types of digestion. So dear learners, There are majorly two types of digestion that take place in our body. Remember, we said digestion is the breaking down of food into simple soluble particles. But before the food is taken, is turned into soluble particles that can be taken into the bloodstream, this food is first broken into smaller particles. So note the difference of what I'm talking about. Small particles and then soluble particles. So those two key areas I'm talking about will give us the two types of digestion, which include mechanical digestion, and chemical digestion. So learners, we have two types of digestion, that is mechanical digestion and chemical digestion. Dear learners, let's look at each of them one by one. What do we mean when we talk about mechanical digestion? The process of mechanical digestion takes place in one of the body parts. And that begins right away when you pick solid food. Let's say a slice of bread, a biscuit, or any solid food, and put it in your mouth. What do you do after putting the food in your mouth? Wonderful. You chew that food. So when you chew that food, using the teeth, you break the food into small particles. So the process of breaking this food into small particles, this large food into small particles, is what we call mechanical digestion. So this takes place in the mouth. And when you look at our video right here, you'll realize that according to our video, please, you can do this practically as you are watching this lesson. But as we look at our video here, you realize that someone has put food in the mouth, and in the process, the jaws are moving. What do we call that? Yeah, that is chewing. So as you chew the food, the teeth will break down the food, the large food particles, into small particles. And that's what we refer to as mechanical digestion. Let's look at this video clearly. Now, when you look at this, there are other parts that we shall talk about later. If you look at these parts here, you realize that we have what we call glands here. And these glands are called salivary glands. We shall talk about them as we proceed with the lesson. Let's continue. Having looked at that, let's look at another type of digestion. How does it occur? When you look at another type of digestion, which is the chemical digestion, this does not involve the teeth anymore. After the teeth doing their work of chewing the food properly, it now goes into another stage where we have some chemical compounds that will continue with the digestion. And these chemical compounds are known as enzymes. Everybody say enzymes. I hope you are now figuring out what the meaning of chemical digestion could be. So when the enzymes take over, they carry out the digestion of food, breaking them now into what we call soluble particles that can easily be absorbed into the bloodstream. In summary, what do we mean by mechanical digestion? And what do we mean by chemical digestion? Let's start with mechanical digestion. So, mechanical digestion simply means the breaking down of large food particles into smaller particles. And this process mainly involves chewing of food by the teeth. Now, if I ask you a question, in which part of the digestive system does mechanical digestion take place? What would be your response? Wonderful. In the mouth. So let's go on. What do we mean when we talk about chemical digestion? So in summary, chemical digestion means the breaking down of food into simple soluble particles by the enzymes. Now, note, dear learners, we have seen something new here. Do you know what enzymes are? All right. So let's go ahead and look at what enzymes are, because this is something new to you. So what are enzymes? All right, so we are saying enzymes are chemical compounds that speed up the digestion of food in the body. Enzymes have properties, or they have specific conditions under which they work, or we can describe them, their nature, and how they operate. So let's look at characteristics of enzymes. Here, we are saying, one, enzymes are destroyed by too much heat. So what does it mean? In case you're eating food, please make sure the food is not too hot. It should be warm. Otherwise, you will interfere with the work of the enzymes. Secondly, the enzymes work within a narrow range of temperature. Do you understand that? Here what we mean is the temperature under which enzymes operate should not be too high and not too low. In simple terms, we can say optimum temperature. Say optimum. Now, under this optimum temperature, it means don't eat food that is too cold. Especially you learners of P5, I hope you don't eat food which has slept in the fridge without warming it. So in that case, the enzymes won't work properly. If the food is too hot, still the enzymes won't work properly. Enzymes have another nature. So dear learners, let's look at the characteristics of enzymes. So enzymes work under different conditions. One, enzymes can easily be destroyed by too much heat. So in this case, I would advise that you don't eat food that is too hot. It should be at least warm. Secondly, enzymes work within a narrow range of temperature. A narrow range of temperature. I know you don't get that clearly. That means they don't need temperature that is too high, and neither do they work under temperature that is too low. It should be optimum. So do not eat food that is too cold or food that is too hot, because they will interfere with the working of the enzymes. The enzymes also work under specific pH. In science, we have what we call pH. In simple terms, we have two kinds of pH. It can be alkaline or acidic. Where there is presence of acid, we refer to that as an acidic condition. And then the opposite is alkaline. We shall get to know more about that. So some enzymes work under acidic conditions, and those are only found in the stomach. Have you noted that? All right. While the rest work under what we call alkaline condition. Other properties of enzymes. We're saying enzymes work on one type of food. They work on specific types of food. So all enzymes, for example, we learned about classes of food in the previous classes. Now, there are enzymes that work specifically on carbohydrates, meaning they cannot work on other classes of food. So that is how enzymes operate. They specialize on different kinds of food. Then, of course, they don't change the end product. So in this topic, we shall get to know the end product of different classes of food. And therefore, during the working of the enzymes, they don't alternate the working of the end products. So having looked at the properties of enzymes, let's go ahead and pick one of the parts of the digestive system and talk about it in details. And that is the mouth. Dear learners, I'm talking about the mouth. You have a mouth. Do you know what's in your mouth? All right. So in your mouth, you have the teeth. You have yours. What else do you have? Good. We have saliva. And we also have the tongue. So these three parts that we have talked about play a very significant role during the process of food digestion in our body. And remember, we said that digestion of food begins in the mouth. So there are two types of digestion that takes place in the mouth, both mechanical and chemical, whereby in the mechanical digestion, it is the role of the teeth breaking the food into small particles. I repeat, small particles. So during this process, you must do what we call chewing, and the chewing must be thorough. Why must we chew the food thoroughly before swallowing it? One, remember we talked about the enzymes. If the enzymes don't get food that is properly chewed, their work will be made difficult. So in other words, chewing increases the surface area for the enzymes to act on the food and make sure they act on that food faster. Secondly, when you chew the food properly, you will also prevent what we call indigestion. We shall get to know that clearly as we proceed. So we said in the mouth we have the teeth, the saliva, and the tongue. Let's look at the role of the saliva. Saliva is a liquid, isn't it? All right. So saliva is a fluid that is produced in the mouth. And this saliva contains different substances. Saliva contains different substances. Saliva contains different substances, which I will talk about. One, saliva contains water. Two, it contains mucus. Three, saliva contains some salts. So, all these are important during the process of digestion. For example, the mucus in the saliva is very useful because it makes the food particles that you have chewed to stick together during the process of swallowing. So, dear learners, when we talk about saliva, this is a juice, a digestive juice produced in the mouth. Remember, in our video, we looked at salivary glands. Good. So the salivary glands are the ones responsible for production of saliva. And I said, in saliva, we have some components. We have mucus. It's not disgusting. This is a very useful mucus. When you're chewing food, the mucus in saliva, after chewing, makes the food particles to stick together such that you can swallow the food easily. Two, we have water. Isn't it a liquid? Yeah, so it contains some water that is very useful during the process of digestion in the mouth and other components. Now, this saliva plays significant roles. One, it softens the food before we chew it properly. So, the roles of saliva in the mouth are one, to soften the food in the mouth. Two, to cool the food. Remember, sometimes we put hot food in the mouth. So the saliva has the ability to the temperature of the food as you chew. Then three, saliva also lubricates the mouth. Remember, if without the lubrication, during the process of chewing, you would be having the effect of friction that would sometimes cause some injuries in your mouth. So saliva helps to lubricate the mouth. And most importantly, I said chemical digestion also takes place in the mouth. So saliva contains a very useful enzyme known as salivary amylase. The salivary amylase. Again, salivary amylase. If not, you can also call this enzyme ptyalin. Here is the spelling. Note the spelling carefully. Ptyalin. Everybody? Ptyalin. Can you spell the word ptyalin? P-T-Y-A-L-I-N. Ptyalin. Please note the spellings carefully. Amylase. Amylase. So this enzyme has the role of digesting carbohydrates, mostly cooked carbohydrates, or we can call it cooked starch, and change it into a simple form known as maltose. Everybody say maltose. All right. So remember, when you eat cooked carbohydrates like sweet potatoes, rice, any other? all right, posho, and many others. Their digestion begins in the mouth. Their chemical digestion begins in the mouth by the action of this ptyalin or salivary amylase. All right, the other part of the mouth responsible during the process of digestion is what we call the tongue. Let's look at the last part of the mouth, which is responsible in the process of digestion. Now, in the previous class, you looked at the tongue as a sense organ. However, in this case, I'm going to talk about the tongue as an organ that helps in the process of digestion. So during the process of digestion, the tongue does a simple role. After chewing the food into small particles, the tongue rolls that food into what we call a bolus. Say bolus. Bolus. When the bolus is rolled, it makes the swallowing of the food easy. In the same way, the tongue also helps in the process of turning the food as we are chewing it in the mouth. So, two roles are played by the tongue here during digestion. One, rolling the food into bolus, and secondly, turning the food, especially when we are chewing. So we have other parts of the digestive system that we shall be talking about in the coming lessons. We shall be talking about the gullet, the duodenum, the stomach, and the rest. If you have a material like a textbook, or if you have access to internet, you can read ahead of the teacher. And then I believe you will enjoy the coming lessons. For today, I would like to leave you with an activity which must be done properly, carefully, in very good handwriting. P5 learners, I know you can really write very well. Please, write carefully, and the responses should be shared with us in case you have the chance to share with us on the different platforms. Stay safe, stay home. Thank you.